one of the habitats it's decided to plant itself in. There's been a colony there for at least 5 years. But the thing I really like, though, is habitat creation. It's sort of a bit of a new concept. You start from literally nothing that a butterfly would be interested in to a habitat like this field down around Kemptville, south of Ottawa. And it now is, it's almost hard to describe this. When I went down to, let me go back a step. Paul Catling, who many of you know, is a botanist, but he was doing a botanical study down near Kemptville. And Paul came back one day and said, gee, I found a new checker spot for eastern Canada. We kind of, pardon? He said, yeah, Oregon checker spot. Yeah, he's pulling our leg, he's kidding. This is a prairie species, grassland species, that is known had been known in one extant location in Georgia, a couple of ephemeral populations in New York State that came and then disappeared. It has been recorded in the Toronto area 100 years ago. And all of a sudden, this thing popped up there. So a bunch of us went down and started surveying fields that had black-eyed Susan. That was the key. You look for fields with black-eyed Susans in them. And lo and behold, we ended up finding 15 colonies in this relatively small area. So isn't that great? We now have a new species for eastern Ontario, and it's there and it's going to be protected, except it's a farmer's field. And who knows what the farmer's... What if next year he decides he's going to plant soybeans? Bingo, gone. That wasn't an issue when this thing was widespread in the area, and we kept finding it. But every year I kept going back for the last about 10 years that I went when I lived in Canada, away for a while. It just kept getting fewer and fewer in number, to the point where I went down about 3 years ago, and I went to all the known locations and didn't find one at the prime time when they all should have been emerged. And I thought to myself, this is serious. And I was driving home feeling quite despondent. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw this field on the left here, full of black-eyed. It was yellow. It was a yellow field. And at first I thought, mustard, and I whoa, you know, stopped the car, got out, walked around. I had 100 Oregon checker spots in the first hour walking around that field, I estimated. We've had as many as we think 1,000 in one day in that field. But the damnedest thing is you can go to all the other fields around it and you don't find it. So this guy, this farmer, accidentally created the perfect habitat for this butterfly. And it seemed to want to stay there. It obviously doesn't spread out much. So I actually went and found the farmer, and I had a little chat with him and said, is this okay? You're okay with this? There's a rare butterfly in there. He didn't seem to be particularly perturbed. He just said, well, why is it there? And I explained about the black-eyed Susans being a larval food plant. And the adults, as you see there, here's a mating pair, so there will be more of them. This I took last year. Seemed to do just fine in that field, and I said to him, well, what's your crop rotation and any plans to change it and everything? He said, no, he threw in some bunch of alfalfa. He plowed the field a number of years back, threw in alfalfa and clover and other kind of, leguminous crops, and lo and behold, it was infested with black-eyed Susan seeds. He doesn't know how, but suddenly he had created it, and I said, any problem, just keep doing that? And he said, no, that's fine, I'll keep doing it. And I said, if you're ever going to sell that chunk of land or change it, please let me know. And I gave him my phone number. And I think what I'm going to do is maybe talk to the Nature Conservancy or some other organization who might want to take over some kind of management arrangement for this field, and maybe other local areas, and make sure we get lots of black-eyed Susan. And one can easily see, the larvae easy to find. They had a little net. So you just take the net and you take it to another 20 fields down and put it out there. So we could manage that well and maintain that butterfly, but again, it started from zero. So, what else do we have to do? Obviously, research and monitoring. We need to know more about our species, where they're found, what their dangers are. These two are students. One's a postgrad and one's a grad student at the University of Ottawa, and they have an ecology lab that does nothing but butterfly conservation work now, and they base it on distribution modeling of species as to how they might change with changing agricultural practices and climate change. Two of the species they're kind of keeping an eye on are these two, the tawny crescent on the right and the Harrison checker spot on the left. The tawny crescent used to be considered an eastern North American butterfly. There's a western subspecies of it. But it actually has almost disappeared from every known location in the States. There's one spot in Georgia where you can get it. Otherwise, all the other populations are gone. It's common in the Ottawa Valley, in the Carbon Plains. We better keep an eye on it. We need more research and monitoring. And the Harrison checker spot is also disappearing from a number of its known locations throughout the eastern U.S. So it's just something we got to keep a close eye on. And for us, what can we do as amateurs and naturalists and people like that? There's butterfly counts. There's the famous North American Butterfly Association count, the NABA count at the beginning of July, where hundreds and thousands of people go out and count butterflies, and then every year they can compare them to the ones before. There's a NABA group out doing a little exploration. And at the bottom there you'll see we have a website that has all the data collected from the Canadian biodiversity. So all those count data, all the TA data will be in there, and we then load this up to a global data called the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, so anybody in the world can get in and get access to that primary data and use it. And I bumped into a scientist in England who said, well, they've been doing major studies using our data in Canada. Why not? Wonderful. Thank you for doing that. And finally, if things really aren't going well for butterfly or they really need good protection, we do have the option of legislation. The Species at Risk Act nationally, and some of the provincial acts, provincial governments have their own similar ones, and the territories. And I chose two examples of butterflies that really are at risk of extinction. They're not found here in Ontario. I took one from the one on the right is called the maritime ringlet, and it's an isolated population of salt marsh ringlet that never strays from the salt marshes. It's known for maybe 10 locations in the world, and that's it. And the one on the left is called Taylor's checker spot, which is a subspecies of Edith's checker spot. It was known up to about a dozen locations in southern Vancouver Island, Garry Oak woodland species, and they all disappeared. Everybody thought, uh-oh, we've lost it. And then they found another population. So they're doing everything they can to try to protect it and maintain this population. So sometimes things get desperate. And clearly, public awareness, getting people interested and aware of butterflies. It's kind of what I do. It's what many of you do. It's terribly important in the whole process, and I'll leave you sort of with this one showing there's a father there, and he's got a little bit of orange in his hand, and there's a big morpho butterfly. He's from one of those tropical conservatories. But I love the looks on the kids' faces as they're looking at it, and I'm hoping some of these kids become butterfly specialists when they get. So with that, on behalf of this Olympia marble representing the butterflies of Canada, thank you very much for the invite to be here today.
On behalf of the Toronto Entomologists Association, we'd like to thank Peter for joining us today. And I'd like to thank everyone for coming, especially the Hesses for their making this talk possible today. I'd also like to thank all the people from the TEA that have, and the people not in the TEA that have helped to make this talk and the reception possible. Chris for arranging the room for us, Don Davis for a lot of the publicity. I'm going to forget someone, I know it. Alan for all the work that he did, and Carolyn, all the others in the TEA, thank you very much. Glenn for the reception. Our next meeting of the Toronto Entomologists will be in January. Jessica really has agreed to speak at that meeting. It's going to be January 28th, I believe. So I hope you'll all join us for that talk. It will be at our old room that we normally use over at Victoria College. We'll be going back to the talk. Right now, all of you are welcome to join us downstairs in room 010 for a little reception. There are some refreshments, and I think that's all, unless anyone has anything to say. I think Carolyn has a few books, maybe not.
A few books to display, including one of the Butterflies of Canada.
Yes, so please join us downstairs. Thank you very much.